My spirit guide is Howie Mandel, The Surprisingly Clean Path to Mental Clarity, by Chris Palmore. Introduction. This is a true story told with a fictional flair because sometimes imagination is the only tool sharp enough to carve out clarity from chaos. Let me explain. No, I don't see dead people. I see Howie Mandel, not physically. He's not floating around my living room like a bald Yoda in skinny jeans, but he shows up in my head at strange, critical moments. Not with deep spiritual wisdom or secret universal truths. No incense, no glowing orbs. Instead, he offers something much more useful. Panic, laughter, and an urgent reminder to sanitize. This all started during a minor life crisis in a Target aisle when I was overwhelmed by 37 types of soap and the slow realization that I was spiraling again, somewhere between cucumber mint bliss and oatmeal calm. I imagined Howie Mandel looking at me with that signature face, part disgust, part disbelief, and I laughed, and that actually helped. From that moment on, he became my uninvited spirit guide, narrating my anxiety, roasting my overthinking, and occasionally offering the kind of strange clarity that only comes from imagining a germophobic comedian whispering life advice into your ear. Let me be clear. I don't actually believe Howie Mandel lives in my head. This book isn't about hallucinations or celebrity obsession. It started as a joke. Just me, playing around in the creative sandbox, trying to make sense of my spiraling brain. But what I stumbled into was unexpectedly useful. Humor is healing. Imagination is medicine. A little perspective from Howie. This isn't a book about Howie Mandel. It's a book about me, using the idea of Howie Mandel as a filter for all the messy, confusing, compulsive, mildly ridiculous ways I try to stay sane in an increasingly unhinged world. You know how some people say they ask themselves, what would Jesus do? Well, my version is more like, what would Howie do, and how many wipes would he use doing it? If you're someone who's ever talked yourself into a full-blown panic attack while looking totally calm on the outside, reorganized your sock drawer because confronting your feelings sounded like too much, tried to meditate but ended up arguing with your own brain, or silently wished you could outsource your inner monologue to someone with better comedic timing. Welcome. You're in the right place. This book is weird. It's honest. It's a survival guide dressed up in punchlines. But every joke in here was born from a real moment of trying to stay afloat. It's funny because it had to be. It's about learning to live with your mind, your anxious, loud, spiraling, beautiful mess of a mind, and maybe even laugh with it a little. Not at the end when everything's tied up in a neat little bow, but in the middle of the mess, while the floor is still sticky, while the cart's still full, while your to-do list is looking at you like an unpaid therapist. And if this all sounds ridiculous, good, because I believe the best wisdom often comes from the weirdest places, like a voice in your head saying, don't touch that. And also, maybe your anxiety isn't a flaw. Maybe it's just part of your operating system. So if you've ever felt like your brain is a broken Roomba, bumping into walls, spinning in circles, occasionally choking on hairballs, you might find something here that helps. And if not, well, at least it's a fast read. Now please, for Howie's sake, go wash your hands. Chapter 1. The Vision in Aisle 5. I was staring at a shelf of soap like it held the secrets of the universe. Target. 2:17 p.m. Fluorescent lights so bright they could interrogate your soul. Somewhere between seasonal candles and home goods, my brain just stalled. I had come in for toothpaste, That was the plan. Toothpaste, maybe a snack. Get out. But Target doesn't believe in plans. It believes in portals. 1 minute you're grabbing Crest. The next, you're asking yourself if you really need a new ottoman and 4 decorative bowls shaped like pineapples. But no, I held my ground. I made it to the soap aisle, and then I broke. Rows and rows of hand soaps stared back at me with smug, bubbly confidence. Lavender Dreams, Citrus Calm, Eucalyptus Zen. Who were these people naming soaps, and why were they mocking my mental state? I picked one up. Cucumber Mint Bliss. I whispered the name to myself like a question. Is this who I am now? Blissful? Minty? Lost in a cucumber fog of late-stage capitalism and neurosis? And that's when it happened. He appeared. Not in a puff of disinfectant or with angelic hand wipes fluttering from above. Just there, in my head, as if he'd been waiting. Howie Mandel. He looked annoyed, deeply, cosmically annoyed. Really? He said, arms crossed. That signature scowl painted across his bald, hyper-sanitized face. You've been in this aisle for 12 minutes. Pick a scent. Wash your hands. Move on with your life. I blinked. Then I laughed, out loud, alone, in Target. A woman nearby looked up from a display of loofahs with a glance that said, Sir, please don't make eye contact with me or my child. I gave her a nod that tried to say, It's okay. I'm just being gently roasted by the imaginary spirit of a game show host, but I don't think that translated. Still, I felt lighter. The storm cloud that had been circling my head, whispering, You're overwhelmed, you're unproductive, you're a human trash fire, suddenly paused to raise an eyebrow and say, Wait, what just happened? And in that pause, I found presence. It's not that the soap aisle became holy ground. No part of Target is holy. But something shifted. I wasn't catastrophizing. I wasn't lost in thought spirals. I wasn't rehearsing worst-case scenarios in my head like a one-man doomsday improv troupe. I was here, in Target, with Howie Mandel. And I was okay. So I picked a soap. I smiled. I didn't feel bliss, but maybe functional cucumber. And I walked away. That moment didn't cure me. Let's not be ridiculous, but it cracked something open. Until then, I'd treated my anxiety like a war to be won. Something to fight, to silence, to scrub clean until I was a polished, optimized version of myself. But here was a new strategy. What if I just laughed at it? What if I stopped running and started narrating it like an awkward sitcom, starring me in a highly hygienic Canadian voice of reason? It was absurd. It was irrational. And it worked. So no, I didn't leave Target enlightened. But I left with soap, and a smile, and a faint sense that maybe my brain, for all its quirks and glitches, wasn't hopeless. Just a little lost. And maybe, just maybe, I had found the weirdest possible GPS. His name was Howie Mandel, and he was about to take me on the surprisingly clean path to mental clarity.
Well now, if that didn't clear your mind and sanitize your soul, I don't know what will. Come back next week for another chapter. Same time, same weirdness. Hit subscribe, keep it quiet, and remember, this never happened.